you feel it. Voice cut. This is a podcast.
Hey, what's happening? This is your host Tinto, and before we get started on this week's episode, I'd like to give a shout out to everybody that got me coffees, starting with you, Kudzai Gomo92. Hey, welcome back. Your comment there reads, Nguva yanga yareba sawira, the high boys kill me. Keep up the good work. Thanks for your coffee. And then I've got my generous contribution there. Thank you once again. And your comment there reads, just came to Tide Hangu. It's been a while since an episode dropped. Hope you're okay. I'm doing very well. Thanks. I've been really busy. That's all. But thanks for checking in. And then one of our newest followers, man, I'm glad about how we connected with the favored women. Generous contribution there, and your comment there reads, this podcast is everything good about podcasting. Beautiful storytelling, engaging delivery, and a really warm host and deep insights. Man, I can't thank you enough for the incredible support that you have given me. Now, I would like to continue reading the other copies, but these happened on my birthday, and there are a lot. So I won't trouble you with them just as yet because the intro will be too long for this episode. However, next weekend, you guys better come prepared because that's when all of these are going to get dropped. If you would like to support the podcast in a similar way, please head over to www.buymeacoffee.com/feeling station and give as your spirit leads. Remember, there is nothing too small to support the podcast that you have grown to love. Now, if you'd like to purchase yourself a t-shirt that speaks of the same, head over to the-feeling-station.printify.me and order yourself t-shirts that say give as the spirit leads. I'd love to see what these look like on you. With this out of the way, let's get straight into this week's episode. And man, daddies, what is going on?
We used to be best friends, used to do good things together. Oh no, but no more. It's just a distant memory. My homie, buddy, cousin, it all just fell apart. I'm sorry.
Nah, I'm not sorry.
It's just a distant memory. Yeah, yeah. Come on, my nini, say good, bestie. Check out, come on, check out, come on, my nini, say good, bestie. Check out, come on, check out, come on, my nini, say good, bestie. Check out, come on, check out, come on.
Hi.
Hey, what's up?
Nothing much.
I know why you're laughing. but let's just leave it there. Welcome to the Feeling Station.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
For those who are listening to the podcast for the first time, it's a romantic family and friendship breakup podcast showcasing stories that people would like to talk about with a view to give you lessons from their experiences. Now, I hope you find today's story entertaining, but more importantly, meaningful. And the podcast is really popular for two main reasons. One being, I do my best to keep you anonymous by giving you a name from the African continent. And today I've chosen a name from South Africa. And your name is in Zulu. And the name is Mbali, which is Mbali. Mbali.
Oh,
yeah.
I really like that name.
Yeah, Mbali is a beautiful name. And what that means is flower. And then there was resounding silence and a giggle. Why? This has never happened in the history of the naming ceremony. Yeah, what's going on?
I feel like I know the question you're gonna ask.
I've already asked the question. What's going on?
I just anticipated the question, because usually you ask your guests, if this name, if they can relate to the name.
Well, can you?
I would like to think so. I mean, for certain people in my life, I am a flower.
Oh, yeah.
They perceive me as such.
Mm-hmm.
But to certain people, they're probably looking like Probably more like a weed.
Ay. That's
Balance,
funny.
Tinto.
That's
Balance.
fine. Okay, I get that. I get that. And this and what are you calling the name of the person that you would like to talk about today?
Whew. The person I'd like to talk about today is, well, a very special man in my life, you know, and in the real world, he has gone by many names. You know, he's someone who had many nicknames. You know,
Right.
it's very larger than life personality. So I just found it fit that, you know, for the podcast, I could also do something similar for him
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
So, you know, for most people, I guess he would be known as my father, but he does go by other aliases, such as, you know, ambassador of broken homes, minister of absentee affairs, sperm donor supreme, Mr. Wati Baba Wagondiani,
Oh my God.
loosely translated, who said I'm your father? Or, you know, you can, if you want to be, you know, I mean, thanks to him, you know, the population did go up significantly. He's done his part. When God said, be fruitful and multiply, like my father took that personally. He made it his personal mandate. So
My gosh.
you know, small wins.
I am absolutely stunned and flabbergasted and everything you can use to describe shock.
Yeah,
Wow.
but it'd be like that, you know. He's not a unique man in Zimbabwe or Africa or the world.
Okay. So what are you calling him? Yo.
I think I'll probably just refer to him as that man.
As that man.
That man, yeah.
Hey, that is a level of dissociation that I think will only permeate through the story, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So the story is about Mbali and that man. And the second reason why the podcast is really popular is they're real life lessons that people walk away from the stories that are shared. So what would you like someone listening to your story today to walk away with?
Okay, so in no particular order.
Yeah.
But I would say the first one would be, you know, when people say forgive and let go, that does not necessarily mean that you have to reconcile with the person who did you wrong. You know?
So letting go and forgiveness don't mean reconciliation.
Yeah, it doesn't. You know, you can let go and forgive and still go your separate ways.
Yeah. True.
And still not want to have anything to do with that person.
Do you know what? This is a very interesting thing you highlight, because I've had this discussion with countless of my friends, very, very close friends. And my position is exactly like yours, that there is a possibility of forgiving people, but it doesn't automatically mean that you have to reconcile with them.
Yeah.
But that is often interpreted by some people as a lack of forgiveness.
Yes, or that you're bitter, or
No, I resonate with that. In fact, I'm going to put it as a poll on this episode to say, when you forgive someone, do you need to reconcile or you don't? Or something just to reflect that, does not reconciling automatically equate unforgiveness? Do you get what I'm saying?
That is, I'm also curious to see.
Yeah, I'm curious. So I'll definitely put that poll up. You got a second lesson?
Yeah. The second one would be that, you know, sometimes, you know, life just deals you like a really crappy hand. Like, you know, basically not everything has some greater reason or it's probably like the foundation of some greater purpose in the future. Like not everyone has that, you know. Sometimes something shitty happens to you in life and it just happened because it happened, you know.
Yeah.
And I feel like for some people, you keep holding on to it because you're like, this is supposed to bring me something in life. It's supposed to, like, it's for a reason. Sometimes there's just no reason.
Yeah. What that sounds to me like is that not everything has a great or glorious purpose. Sometimes life just deals you a crappy hand, and it's just what it is. There's no deeper meaning to it.
Yeah.
Bruh.
Yeah.
It sounds a bit unfair. It sounds a bit unfair, but yeah, I get it. That's just the hand you've been dealt. It is what it is. Okay, cool. Got a third lesson?
Third one, this one is more probably just for myself, before the story starts, that, there's no such thing as a perfect victim. And just because a victim is not perfect or maybe somewhat blameless doesn't mean they're any less of a victim in a situation.
Oh, yeah. True. Yeah. Because there's always the whole syndrome of my pain is more than yours.
Yeah.
In fact, I see it reflected in this podcast because I have people who think twice about telling their stories because they feel that what they have to say is not as powerful as the previous episode that's just dropped. And my word of encouragement to them is your pain is your pain. If I pinch a 3-month-old baby right now with the same amount of pressure that I pinch you, that baby's likely going to scream and you won't scream. But it doesn't mean that they didn't feel pain. They felt a lot of pain. Except that your pain tolerance level has obviously been built up over time.
It's been, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, no, I get that. I like that a lot. Got a fourth?
Yeah. And a fourth one would probably be, just basically in our culture that we just should stop as adults. We should stop making excuses for poor behavior, and especially when adults wrong children. We shouldn't sweep it under the rug or just expect the child to just accept what it is.
Right, yeah.
We should at least speak up for children and point out when wrongdoing has been done. I think it just goes a long way in terms of like how people will feel about themselves.
Yeah. So this is a plea really to our community to rethink the values and the traditions that we choose to uphold, right? That some of them aren't really worth it anymore. They do more harm than good. This really makes me think about the episode that came out just last weekend where my guest said, fuck the culture.
True.
Because the culture withholds certain values, and then if those values aren't really good for the community and the individuals in it, maybe they need to be revisited.
Yeah,
cool.
That's true.
And you got any more? How many more do you have left now?
Okay, just two more. Let me just breeze through them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the second one, this one, there's an individual in the story, someone who is very non-confrontational. And, just that sometimes it's not always the best thing, choosing peace. Sometimes you just need to speak up, say something. You just, turning the other cheek is not, it's not always a viable solution. And last but not least, this is actually probably more of a plea and also a lesson for single parents, especially single parents where the deadbeat parent is just not a good person. I think it's very important for the parent with custody to just protect their child from that parent. And I'm not saying like, don't let them see their father or whatever. But if you know that the father is not a good person or wasn't a good person to you, because chances are they're not going to be a good person to your child either, I'm not saying keep them away, but, at least be involved, like be present, because sometimes you drop your child there and, things go down.
Can this be the same for deadbeat women?
Yeah.
So
that's why I said, single parents. Yeah. I just gave the example with the father.
Gotcha.
But single parents in general.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna play these back real quick, paraphrased. So the first thing, they're not in any particular order as I remember them. So there's no such thing as a perfect victim. And then letting go and forgiveness don't mean reconciliation. Number 3, single parents, protect your children from deadbeats as much as you can. Number 4, not everything has a greater or glorious purpose. Sometimes life deals you a crappy hand and it's just what it is. There's no deeper meaning to it. And then last but not least, this is not really a lesson, but more of a plea to our community to rethink the values and the traditions that we choose to uphold. Some of them aren't worth it anymore and they do more harm than good. And culture was never meant to be a statistic concept. It's meant to evolve.
A static concept.
Yeah, static, yeah. Ish,
Yeah.
English is
Sorry.
not my language. I'm evolving also.
You're evolving
I'm
as well.
evolving and learning the language. Right, buddy, let's get into it. Talk to me about that, man.
Right. So, just for context, my early life, I was raised by my mom and also my grandparents, because my mom had me when she was very young. She was 20.
Mm-hmm.
And, at that time, she didn't really she was just starting out like professionally. So I guess it just wasn't possible for her to raise 2 kids, because I do have an older sister.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, 22 kids and you're starting a new job, but the hours, it's just financially it's just not feasible,
Mm-hmm.
You
had a bit of a funny reaction when you were saying about your older sister. Why did you do that?
Because I felt because when I said, my mom had me, I for a split second, I forgot that I had an older sister.
Why?
We don't share the same father. So for this episode, I was looking at my notes and she doesn't really show up much in the notes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
I just had a bit of you forgot a sibling.
Okay, cool.
That's crazy.
All right, no worries.
Yeah. So also, at some point, I think when I was about 7-ish, 8-ish, I did. We then moved back, to live with my mom, and spend more time with her. And during this time, my mom had been dating someone. She had been dating this man for years. I think from the time I was born, this man was just always present in my life, and that's who I really and truly thought was my father.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was like, oh yeah, him. So you can just refer to him as my stepfather for now. And until when I was about 8, I just kind of had like a little light bulb, like ding dong moment where I was like, wait a minute, other kids refer to their fathers as dad, or father. And let's just say his name is Steve. And I'm like, I call my dad Uncle Steve. What's that about?
Mm-hmm.
So, I was a child. Like I as a child, I would always I was not shy about asking my mom questions. So, so I did ask her, and I'm like, why do I call Uncle Steve and not dad?
Yeah.
Is he not my father? And, so my mom explained to me that, no, he's not your dad. And your dad is another being altogether. That's not what she said, but she said it in a nice way. And I was like, oh, okay. And now looking back in hindsight, I think, because I do not recall explicitly asking to see my father.
Right.
I just asked her to just clear up this situation. Because, it was just something that I wanted to know. But I think she probably took it as, it's time to make that introduction.
Right.
Because I remember after that, there were, secret conversations. I was also a very nosy child. So sometimes she'd be on the phone and I would just be low-key listening, eavesdropping, or, And, but basically the theme of those conversations was, was mostly, she should meet her father. It's time for her to know her father, this could be good, you can't keep her from her father, things like that. And yeah, one day we made the trip. Like one evening, she's like, yep, let's go see him.
Mm-hmm.
So we showed up at his offices, and yeah, she took me in and she's like, hi, yeah, this is your dad. Dude, this is your kid.
Mm.
And so after doing like the little introduction, she walked out. She went back to the car.
And she left the two of you.
Yeah, the two of us.
Mm.
And there were also some other random guys. For some strange reason, my dad always had like a posse with him.
Mm.
They were always just random dudes hanging around. So it was me, him, and the random dudes.
Mm.
Yeah, so he was just like asking me, so what's your name? Which is wild.
What's your name?
What's your name?
And you were 8 years old?
Bruh. Yeah.
Mud. Wow.
I'm like, oh. Yeah, now in hindsight, I'm like, wow, damn, that's crazy.
Mm.
But yeah, what's your name? How old are you? So what brings you here? And I'm like, and I just told him, yeah, my name is, and yeah, I just asked her about my dad, and, I thought it would be nice to meet you.
Mm.
And he's like, wow, no, that's good. No, you've done well. You've done well asking to see me,
Mm.
And then he did something weird. Like at that time, I didn't know how to process it because I'd never been in such a situation. Despite the fact that back home, on my mom's side of the family, we have a lot of men in our family.
Right.
But I'd never been this weird around a man, where he turns to his posse and he's like, basically, because he was speaking in our native language, but just, in English, he's basically, oh, hi guys, this is my daughter. Look at her. Like, she's already all grown up now. Yeah, like she's actually growing up. Look, she's already growing boobs, basically. Yeah. I think you can imagine what that sounds like in our native language.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And we had, the stranger danger talk,
Mm-hmm.
at home, but it was never in the context of like a family member. It was always like some random person.
Right.
Like this danger comes from a random person. So I think at that time in my mind, I was a bit confused about how to feel about that because this is supposed to be my father. He's not a stranger, technically speaking. So that meeting went by fast. I think I was there for like about 20 minutes at most.
Yeah.
And and then I went back home. Moving on from there, there was just this, somehow, for some strange reason, my dad got this brilliant idea that, you know what, I think I would like to have all my children in one space. Bring them over for the holidays. And one holiday, school holiday, my mom packed my bag and she's like, hey, you're going to be spending the holiday at your dad's. Drop me off. I get there and there's like 700 kids there. Okay, not 700. There was like 9 of us.
But geez, that's a lot still,
That's
right?
still a lot. That's still a lot.
And this was a mix of both boys and girls?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. And, and most of us had never met each other, by the way. And, because there were 3 siblings, half siblings who lived with him at his home. He was married, he had a wife, but the wife was not in the country for a long time. So, yeah, it was just him, the kids at home, and obviously house help. So, yeah, we're just thrown in there and have fun. So I just find it very interesting as well that, no adult took time to introduce us to each other.
Yeah.
But, we all knew that, okay, we're all his children. And it's like, just trying to figure out, but like, who's your mom? Like, who has the same mom here? Who doesn't? Who came first? which is very interesting because then that's when I have a brother who's like 2 weeks older than me.
I was just about to ask, like, what are the age ranges between all of you? As in, were they big gaps or? And you've just mentioned you're someone who was 2 weeks. You were your sibling.
Yeah. I think based on my age, like one was 2 years older. There's one, who's 2 weeks older. There's one, they're like 2 or 3 who are like a year or so younger than me, 2 years younger, 3 years younger. And special feature, we even have hood twins, born on the same day, different mom.
Yeah, nah.
Yeah, he was always very proud of that one. He was always very proud of it. So I just, but looking back, there was always, we got along, but there was always some tension in the air. Because even among us kids, because you could also tell that he had favorites.
Okay.
And the favorites depended on his relationship with their mother at that time, or maybe how things ended. That kind of determined how he interacted with you. Because there's one, like, he was still cool with her mom, so like that sibling was a darling. And they're, of course, the children of the woman that he's currently married to, but he wasn't particularly nice to them. Oh, yeah, because he was also cheating. Because, in addition to the siblings that were there, he also had like a girlfriend, and her kids also joined us on the holiday.
This is mad.
Yeah. So it's a bit... So, of course, it's like... I feel like it had the energy of, you better not tell your mama what's going on here.
Right.
And and for some of us, like my mom just couldn't stand him. So I don't think I wasn't primed to be a favorite.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So it was also just not really a great time, those holidays, in hindsight. And because he would, he was still living his best life. So sometimes he would go out and then come back home with his posse. And, you just have these random men just walking around the house. Or maybe you're like in your room and someone opens the door, and then you like wake up and you look, and this random man is just there like, oh, sorry, I didn't know someone was in here. And it's like, now looking back, I'm just like, I probably should have told my mom what went down.
Yeah.
Or at least the general environment, even how he just always used very abusive language, especially with my brothers.
Like what? What would he say?
Things like, the word in our native language that refers to a female's organs.
Say it.
Basically, urimata yemuno.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And you'll be saying this to your brother?
Yeah. Msatanyoko, like all sorts.
Damn.
Yeah. Just like one slight mistake and there's like, it just starts coming out. And it's very, so that was pretty much the environment. Like, that holiday, that was just, not not a great time. Yeah, but would also hang out with his, his girlfriend. At that time, she seemed really cool. Sometimes we'll go to her house, and she seemed really nice and supportive at the time. But also, the two of them were also kind of like really toxic. Because, at one point, she kind of, she caught him cheating. or she discovered that he was cheating.
Listen, that's it. It's a funny word to have as a description, because you have a married man who's cheating on his wife with you, and then would it still be called cheating on the side piece? You know what I mean? Like, to what extent does cheating remain a valid expression?
Exactly. And also, let's not forget the 700 children that are in your house right now with different mothers.
Yeah, jeez.
So because we had been out having dinner, and then the next thing, my dad just got up and basically took his kids and he's like, let's get in the car, let's go. And they started having a car chase.
A car chase?
Yeah. Oh yeah, speeding, Fast and Furious style.
With all of you in it? With
all of us in there. Jeez. And she also had her kids in her car.
Oh my God.
And we were just, yeah. That was a very scary experience. And I think that was also one of the last times when I was like, oh, I don't think I can do this anymore. Next holiday, I have to find a way out. And just as well, I stopped going. Like, when I started high school, I guess I just became a bit more confident in saying, listen, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And I didn't say why, but I was like, no, I just want to stay home. And, it just stopped at that. And I guess, let's say from the time I was 13, I didn't really have much contact with my dad anymore.
Right.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Because you didn't like what he was about.
I didn't. Yeah. And also, he also just always used to shout at me. And I'm just like, goodness me. And you can't even reason with him. And I don't know what it is about deadbeat dads in English, because one of his favorite insults to me was always, Mbali, you are just like your mother. You think you're so clever because you speak English.
Bruh. Yeah.
You think you're so clever.
Yeah.
Stupid. And I'm like, what does the English have to do with it? It's just, yeah. So I was like, you know what? I'm tired of that. But unfortunately, I could not avoid him for long, because when I was about 16, my mom passed away.
Oh, shame. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. Tough times. And this man showed up at the funeral. And I feel like up until this point, I didn't like him, but I didn't feel strongly about him. I didn't really, But he showed up to the funeral and sitting there while eating food that my mother's family has, provided for the mourners in attendance, starts basically shouting as loud as he can about how, how did she die? And I explained how she died, like it wasn't like, some big secret that we were hiding.
Yeah. Because
she hadn't been feeling well for a long time. And it was also like a genetic illness. Several people in our family had passed away from that. Even my grandma had passed away the year before from the same disease.
Right.
So, it wasn't something that was a big secret. And he just starts yelling at me, talking about, he's, let me just translate it. He's like, you're lying, everyone knows your mother was a whore.
Oh.
Like, your mother was just sleeping with everyone and anyone she can find.
Okay.
Just be honest. You know what she died of. We all knew what she was.
He was basically insinuating that she died because of a sexually transmitted illness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm like, what, even then, what's it to you? And why do you feel the need to shout this? But I think I was also in mourning, but but I was also just so taken aback by this.
Yeah.
And people who were there, no one stopped him. He actually went on a rant for like a good 2 minutes or so about what a terrible person she was and how she probably deserves whatever it was that she died of. And like I said before this, I never felt strong. I just knew I didn't like him, that, we're just not cool, if that's an expression.
Yeah, yeah.
But in this moment, I just remember looking at him and just thinking, it should have been you.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, like that coffin, that should be you. And I also remember, because, as my mom was battling her illness, and, it's a tough thing watching your parent die. And, in desperation, like, you pray to God and you promise anything and everything, and you're just really begging, like, don't take my mom. Like, surely there's someone else out there. And I couldn't pinpoint who that someone else was at that time. But in that moment, I was just like, oh my goodness, you are the someone that I should have bargained with. So that was my moment. And I was like, okay, yeah, we've crossed the line that we'll probably never come back from.
Yeah.
And, my mom being a single mom at the time, after she passed away, obviously, I guess my mom, because I remained with my mom's side of the family, with my grandfather, but, he also needs, basically we needed help, just to put me through school. Because, the exams to write, there's fees to be paid. And, and I just thought to myself, before this burden falls on, people in my mom's family, my father is there and I know he has money. So I would try and ask him nicely, like, hey, can you help me out with fees? Can you help me out with this? And then at some point he started avoiding my calls, and, I got kicked out of school. And, I'm also trying to write my A levels. So I need to go to school or else, I'll fail.
Yeah.
And I remember, one day I was like, let me just go to his office and just try and speak to him in person. And yeah, I got there and and then I asked him, and I told him, hi, Dad, I need money for school fees. Like, please, can you help me? I have to register for exams, blah, blah, blah. And then, like, he just looks at me and he's like, why are you asking me for money? And I was like, because, I don't know, you're my father. And he's like, who told you I'm your father?
Bruh.
You see, AKA Mr.
Bruh, yeah.
Which is such a wild thing to say. And I was just like, yeah, but my mom told me, like, you were there. When she said it, you didn't object, but he went off at me. I don't know you. I'm not your father. Your mother used to sleep around. Like, who told you I'm your father? Like, you can't just believe everything that woman says. He didn't say that woman. Basically said, everything that horse says. And he basically just told me to get out and basically just F off. And that was hard to hear. Like, even now recollecting, like, I remember I left and I was walking back, to get my combi so I can get home. And as I was walking, I just randomly bumped into this lady. Like, we just made eye contact and I just started crying. And, God bless that woman. Like, she just comforted me, and she's like, hey, whatever it is, it's going to be okay. Like, she would have just ignored it and moved on, But yeah, that was that. And I left him for a couple of years. And then eventually, like in my early 20s, I guess we can call this the reunion tour.
Right.
Where, he was slowly starting to reach out. And then he sent his father to get the kids together, so we can, just basically get his kids together. And the funny thing about my grandfather, his father, is that, so this man, I've been seeing this man for as long as I can remember. Like at the grocery stores, whenever I would go to the shops, and so the neighborhood that we lived in, my grandparents had been there for a long time. So I was used to old people, greeting me, and also greeting old people, because I just assumed they're friends of my grandparents somewhere, somehow. Yeah, that kind of thing. So this man always used to greet me. I used to greet him. And I just assumed, it's just another random from church or something. Only to find out, wait a minute, you're my grandfather.
Oh.
So all these years, you knew me, you saw me.
Yeah.
You never said anything.
I wonder why he said nothing.
And he also he lived like 15 minutes away from me. And so, we had the reunion tour, and, things were said like, you know what, it's important for us to be united as a family. Your father has made mistakes, but, nobody is perfect. We should forgive, let bygones be bygones, basically just a bunch of emotional blackmail to, I guess, get us to play ball. And we did. And, for a while I really tried, to bond with him and to just try and have a relationship with him.
Why did you want to have that relationship with him?
At that time, I just took some really bad advice from someone. One of his siblings mentioned to me that, but your mother is late now and you only have one parent. One is better than none, just try and make it work with the one that's here. At some point, I realized that, this is something that my grandfather wanted. He didn't give a shit. My grandfather was trying to put the family together.
Yeah.
And he was just like, you know what, whatever. For him, it was actually like a bit of a laugh for him, because he's like, he would just make comments like, oh my goodness, look how many children I have. So many children.
Yeah.
Like, he was so proud of himself. And, he would also, talk about how he chose the mothers well. And he's like, I don't take care of any of my children. I don't have to. If you choose women who are independent and can take care of themselves, you never have to take care of children. And I was just like, wow, that makes sense. Because when I look at like my siblings and their mothers, like, they are all very capable women, very intelligent. I'm like, okay, no, it's by design. And I was just like, okay, wow, thank you for that lesson.
Deep, man.
Yeah. Once I realized that my father wasn't actually interested in having a relationship with any of us.
Yeah.
Well, not any of us, some of us. I also just decided, you know what, why am I even trying? And it was also, I was around 22.
Ish. Yeah.
And I was like, why am I even trying? At that time, I just decided, you know what, I'm not even going to call you dad. And I just started calling him by his first name, which he absolutely hated. And I stood 10 toes down about how, listen, a father is just a title that you don't deserve.
And you would say this to him?
Oh, I would say to him.
Yo.
Oh, my goodness. The arguments that we had in public, epic. Not to mention when he started also having side chicks. In addition to his side chick, he had other side chicks.
I like the way you say when it started. It's always been the situation. You should be saying when he added another side chick to the existing side chick.
You know what? Okay, when he added a new age demographic to the side chick.
Wow.
These were like girls my age. And I was just like, wow, this is, so I would see him in the bar, and, if I see him at the bar, we're cool because obviously I want him to pick up my tab. I just always used to send my tab to his table because why not? Yeah, let me get what I can. And eventually I left the country. And after I left the country, I just stopped talking to him. And he started reaching out now, asking me, how are you? How are things? My daughter, this, that, and that. And I'm just like, okay, this is something that I've wanted. Now it's happening. Why does it feel funny? And I didn't really talk to him much because I needed time to sort out my thoughts and my feelings. Because, now that I was in the continent that's pretty well known for having disrespectful children.
The continent, not for disrespect. Okay.
Yeah, I just decided, you know what, I had some talks with some people, and, white people just basically looked at me and they're like, if your dad sucks, just stop talking to him. Like, why are you still, no. You're reading too much into this DNA relationship. It's cut him off.
Yeah.
Move on. You don't need him. That's just dead weight. Yeah. And I thought about it, and, the next time I visited home, I sat him down, him and his father, and I just explained to them that, listen, I don't want to be a part of this family anymore. And I'm just doing this as a courtesy because I feel like if I just disappear, that's things will not be clear. And I just want you to know why. And, I just explained to them how, I just don't like how you've treated me and how you've been to me my whole life. My grandfather was there pleading, talking about, no, forgive him. You can't do this. Oh, taboo. It's not right. And my dad is like, but why are you always hanging on to things in the past, Why can't you just move on? Like, some of these things, they happened so long ago, but you're just bringing things up, Like, let's focus on now. And I'm like, even if we wanted to focus on now, let's just try. Let's just do a little trivia. What's my second name? Oh, yes, I've got two names. And let's just say if my dad was called Mike, Mike George, I was basically called Mbali Grace or Georgina. Basically, my names reflected his names, which is like the female version of his name.
Right.
That's how my mom picked my names.
Yeah.
Yeah, no idea. When was I born? Like, how old am I? If you can't tell me my birth date, like, just a month, a year, ballpark, can't answer. Where did I go to school? Where do I live? Like, nothing about me. And he's like, no, but you know what? Those things are not important because at the end of the day, I'm your father and we need to respect that. And in that moment, he just triggered something in me. And I was like, wait a minute, whoa, wait, you said you're my what? And he's like, no, I'm your father. And I'm like, who told you you're my father?
Oh, now you're giving it back.
Yeah. Now I'm like, and then he's like, what are you talking about? This is nonsense. I'm like, no, wait. On countless occasions, you have called my mother a whore and you have claimed that she slept around. So technically speaking, we don't know if you're my father. We could be wasting time right now trying to build a relationship that's probably not even meant to happen because you're probably not my father.
Yeah.
He's like, what are you talking about? I'm your father. And I'm like, no. But you said it yourself. And you've said it so many times. And I've thought about it. You might be right. That woman might have been sleeping around. And unfortunately, we cannot ask her because she's dead. No, but everyone knows. Ask your family, ask your uncles, everyone knows. And I'm like, okay, fine, let's just say, you're telling the truth that you are my father. When my mom got pregnant, did you pay damages? Because, technically speaking, if you don't pay damages, my family doesn't know you. We don't know you. Oh, he lost his shit. It's like, no, why are you always like this? Why are you always so difficult? What is wrong with you? And I'm like, no. You started this. I'm just going by what you were saying, because now that I'm a bit older, you kind of make sense. And to be fair, I didn't know you for the first 8 years of my life. Where were you? And also, some of my siblings have your last name. I don't have your last name.
You had your mom's last name?
My mom's last name, exactly. And if I remember correctly, according to my mother, when I was born, you walked in, looked at me, and you were like, oh, it's a girl. And you literally left like 5 minutes after.
Oh, my God. Yeah, okay.
Like, that would have been a good time to be like, oh, it's a girl. By the way, remember, last name thing, yeah? Do what needs to be done. You didn't even bother to stay for that. So we could all just be wasting our time right now. Oh, my poor grandfather at the time, he's there crying. He can't believe what he's hearing. But I'm like, listen, you enabled your son. Surely this can't be the wildest thing that has ever happened.
Well, why would you say he enabled his son?
Yeah, he knew his son was a deadbeat and he never did anything. Never called him out. Because anytime I would ask people why they never call him out, it was always, but that's just how he is. You just have to ignore it. Don't take it personally. That kind of chat. And, but the best one was that apparently he wasn't like this before the war. After he fought in the war, the Chimurenga, whatever, he just came back and he was a different person. And I was like, so his PTSD manifested as a deadbeat. Like others have shell shock. Others have nightmares. But his PTSD was like, no, let me womanize.
Wow.
Come on. Yeah. So I was very serious about leaving that side of the family. And I did do that.
Yeah.
A few years later, he did message me telling me, that I was a terrible person because I didn't text him to give my condolences after his father died. And I was like, why would I give you, let's just say like this happened in like 2022 or whatever. And I'm like, why would I give you condolences for my grandfather passing away right now? And he's like, yeah, because he passed away. And I was like, dude, my grandfather passed away in 2017. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because my mom's dad did pass away in 2017. This man, I do not know. So I'm like, I'm sorry. Find your condolences elsewhere. Needless to say, about a year ago, my father finally passed away.
Finally.
Finally. I did mention before that it should have been him. I think this is something that has always bothered me. His presence on this earth bothered me because I always felt like in the grand scheme of things, remember when I say things don't happen not everything happens for a reason, because I always felt like, maybe me losing my mom, it's like, it's a critical part of character development or something like that I need for something in the future. But now that I'm sort of in the future, I'm like, I do not see what this was supposed to bring. And I've always made it clear. I've even told my father on countless occasions that it should have been him. And I cannot understand why he's still breathing. And yeah, I just never, for me, just never felt fair. If I was to lose, if the story of my life was that I'm supposed to lose a parent, I never understood why it was the parent that I needed.
Yeah.
Why did I use the useful parent?
Yeah.
Instead of the one, and I cannot think, even like with all my half siblings, I think we could all just do without him. we would all be so much better off without him. I just don't see what positive contribution he made to the, like, I cannot, there's nothing. I can't pinpoint it. If anything, it's just been drama and trauma. So it's, and I've always been very clear about how I feel about my father. So anyone who texted me talking about, oh, my condolences, I'm just like, condolences for who?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, how are you feeling? And I was like, I'm fine. I'm actually about to go and grab a drink. What's good? Oh, this must be so tough. No, it's not. The only thing that's tough is that he lived like 18 years longer than he should have.
Oh my gosh.
I know it sounds like a harsh thing to say, but for some of my siblings, they were upset, distraught. But for me, I just found it hard to connect because I'm like, I'm sorry, I've been waiting for this man to die since 2008. So the way I see it, it's about time. I feel no type of way, very indifferent, and also happy that he's gone.
Because you don't need to talk to him unnecessarily anymore.
Yeah, I think there's something about him not being here. It just feels like a weight has been lifted off.
Yeah.
Somehow. And I just don't like how, I think also another thing that probably makes me a bit angry is that it's almost as though he still managed to dodge accountability. Yeah. Not even an apology, not even acknowledgement, nothing. Just entitlement to the end.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Has this manifested itself in the way that you are romantically with guys? Has this affected your view on a desire to have children?
Yep.
Okay. To what extent for both?
Romantically, I typically try to avoid men who have any similarities with my father.
Mm-hmm.
Even as far as like anyone who likes the same sport as my father, I'm like, yeah, no.
Wow.
So let's just say my father loved tennis. If you're someone who's into tennis, let's just move on. Because I remember in high school, there's a boy that I really liked, and my father kind of knew him from around the neighborhood. And basically my father co-signed him. And in that moment, I was just like, yeah, no. Yeah, that can't be good. I'm just going to break up with you. And in terms of children, this is probably more to do with how my life turned out after my mom passed away. I'm not particularly thrilled about having children unless I can guarantee that I can be there until they're,
unless you can
able to be on their own.
Right. So you're saying you can live long enough to see them become independent people.
But you can't guarantee that now, can you?
Mm-mm.
And I think just the thought of if I was to have children and I die and they are, subjected to a similar fate as mine, I would roll in my grave. I think I would come back as I would have to haunt everyone in question. There has to be some ancestral way of doing that. But since we cannot guarantee that, it definitely gives me, I'm not too excited about it. Like I would love to, but I think the anxiety won't even let me carry like a pregnancy to term.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's, just to close up also on one of the lessons, my mother was never a confrontational person. She was just more of a peacemaker. She didn't really, she's just one of those people who, if there's an argument, she'll just be more solution oriented, even if the other person is the one who's in the wrong, you know? So she wasn't very, that kind of a person. And I just feel like if she had been, she could have, maybe she would have had, you know, she would have been able to tell me like, hey, listen, your dad sucks. That man is a terrible man. So maybe let's put a pause on meeting him. Or she would have probably insisted more on being around him. But also in hindsight, I can also maybe understand why she didn't want to be around him, because my mom always had this look on her face whenever she was around him. That look where, you know, if you date someone that you're embarrassed of, and every time you look at them, it's like you can't believe you once were with this person. Like you just look ached the whole time.
Right.
Like and also my dad wasn't really the sharpest knife in the drawer. So my mom was also a pretty smart person, and he just always used to say a lot of dumb things. And she just always had this look on her face as well, like, what an idiot. So I guess most people are lucky enough, you know, like if you date someone embarrassing, you can pretend you never dated them. But in her case...
You know, it's funny. I'm just trying to imagine who I've been embarrassed of dating, and thank God I don't think I have one that I can pull out the bag. so I can't relate, but I sort of kind of have an idea.
Yeah, I think like for women, anyone who's ever made the mistake of dating a loser, they might know what that looks like. And so I just wish, you know, she would have stood 10 toes down on the reason why she had, you know, not contacted him in 8 years.
Yeah.
Because she cut him off for a reason.
You know, in a funny way, I have, you know, somewhat an incredible amount of respect for you being able to move past what wasn't said or what could have been said by your mom. You know, that explanation, that reason. Because I don't think you have the capacity to move on without closure of a sort. And it looks like this is what you've been able to do. So there's something worth celebrating there. There's something really, really big. The impact it has on you, I really don't have the training to understand. You sound okay, you sound fine. But hey, man, to say that you couldn't wait for someone to die, it's a lot. I get it.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
I know it's a lot.
But you know, it's a lot. It probably speaks more volume than I can hear or make sense of. But it also seems to give you a sudden, you know, inner peace.
It really did.
Yeah, you know,
as cruel as it sounds.
Yeah, you know, there's an extension into how this impacts your relationships with the opposite sex and how you want to have children, whether you want to have children or you don't. Yeah. If you tell me you're okay, cool. I'm cool. That's what I'm basically saying.
I'm fine. I definitely, once I stopped seeking closure, I was fine. I was fine once I stopped seeking closure, because that man was never going to admit to wrongdoing.
Yeah.
You know, he would have probably accused me of thinking I'm clever because I speak a lot of English. Yeah.
Hey, Mbali, thanks, man, for sharing this.
Thank you, Tinto, for having me.
You're an amazing flower that has stuck out to come and share this with people that really need to hear this, because I'm sure there's a lot more people who are having issues with their parents.
Exactly. Well, you know, leave those parents.
Hey.
Leave them. No. Leave them, sis.
And then all I'll say is work it out in the way that works well for both, whatever that is.
I think if they don't pose a danger, you know, to your mental health and, you know, to you physically, but if the bygones can't be bygones, then some of these it's not worth it. If you don't need them financially or for anything, leave them. Especially if they don't have an inheritance, leave them. No, to be honest, because here we had no inheritance. All the money had been spent on girlfriends. There was nothing. So I promise you, there's no pot of gold at the end of this rainbow. Yeah.
Yeah, no, well, anyway, thanks, Mpali, for sharing these incredibly deep lessons and deep story. And I'll just play them back before we close this out. Lesson number 1, there's no such thing as a perfect victim. Number 2, letting go and forgiveness don't mean reconciliation. I think this is very, very clear in this episode that you've just shared. Lesson number 3, single parents, protect your children from deadbeats as much as you can. I guess that's what she did. For those 8 years until the question was raised.
But don't listen to an 8-year-old as well, man. I don't know shit. But yes, sorry, go on.
Yeah. Yeah. Number 4, not everything has a greater or glorious purpose. Sometimes life deals you a crappy hand, and it is what it is. There's no deeper meaning to it. Yeah, I think this is very apparent in your story. Yeah. And then the last that I have is, you see, it's not really a lesson. But then, it's a plea to the community to rethink the values and the traditions that we choose to uphold, which I guess was not giving you any form of accountability in terms of but what happened. And then some of them aren't worth it anymore, and then they do more harm than good. Culture was never meant to be static. As a concept, it's meant to evolve. Sure. Yeah, you've got me thinking on this episode.
We need to, because all of this, Panti Baba, like, oh, come on, man. Like, we all don't like this person. Yeah. Why are we pretending?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's stressful times.
Well, thanks, Mbali. And you guys have been listening to another episode of the Feeling Station podcast. I'm your host, Tinto, and I will catch you in the next episode.